What God has in front of you is more fulfilling than anything you've seen in the past. There are times the good has to come to an end to make room for the best. It's all a part of God's plan.
And I think more times than not in life, people treat God like a Santa Claus. And then when they don't get the gifts, it's a problem.
You can't see what God is up to, but later on, you're going to understand. You may not see how that works out for your good until years down the road.
I think true courage is the ability to embrace what we don't understand. Even though I don't like it, I can still trust God even though I can't trace God.
We may not like the process. Thoughts will tell you it's never going to get better. That disappointment didn't stop what God has for you. That setback is not stopping you, it's setting you up for new levels.
See, the route you on right now is the route you got to take.
God is in the process of connecting the dots in your life. Everything is serving His plan. You have to trust Him when you don't understand.
I'm going to dig my way out of it. There are no quick fixes to complicated problems. So when you say, what if your digging isn't working? That's what the enemy says to you when God is working on your life. How do you trust God in the midst of your digging? You got nobody else to trust. Not your mother, not your father, not your sister, not your brother. I don't care what you're into. You got nobody you can trust like you can trust God. But just because He doesn't work with your time schedule doesn't mean that He's not working in your behalf.
The fact that things are running out doesn't mean God has forgotten about you. When you see the new door God opens, you'll say, Lord, thank you. You say the best for now. The best is not behind you. The best is next.
It doesn't have to feel like it's working to be working. It doesn't happen on your schedule, but that doesn't mean it's not working. Somebody watching me right now, you don't even see daylight. You don't see no sign that help is on the way. The Lord said, I'm going to send you the water. You're not going to see it coming. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready for God to rock my world and blow my mind. And I'm making room for it. My constant prayer is increase my capacity. Capacity for pressure, capacity for stress, capacity for anxiety. But if God thought enough of me to send me, whom the Lord calls, He qualifies. And I came to tell every person in this room, you can do this. I know you're sweating, but you can do this. Or God wouldn't have put you in the situation if you can't do this.
You'll get knocked down, but you won't be knocked out. You have the power to make that decision.
You can do this. Don't give up on your dream. Don't give up on your hope. Don't give up on your promise. Don't give up on what God called you can do. You can do this. It may stretch you, it may expand you, it may enlarge you, but you can do this. I rebuke every devil that's been telling you that you don't have what it takes. You can do this. I never did it before. Yeah, but you can do this. I didn't study this in school. Yeah, I get that. I don't have a degree in that. I get that. But you can do this. Whom He calls, He qualifies. You can do this. And if you don't know what you're doing, get somebody who does and partner with them. And I'm wondering, are you making the right connections for what's next in your life? What are you willing to slay? What are you willing to change in order to get there? What you say, that's just how I am. But in order to get what God wants to get done, you got to get rid of that's just how I am and start saying, make me what you want me to be, increase my capacity. I'm ready to go to the next level. Any way you bless me, Lord, I'll be satisfied. I'm going to change the world before I get out of here. And little by little start putting together the strategy that it takes when no is not an option. Say it with me, no is not an option.
I'm going to empower me. And all of these things that are happening to me right now, they're just temporary inconveniences.
I learned that the race is not given to the swift, but to him that endureth to the end. I I learned that speed for a moment doesn't really mean progress. I learned that when you get in a curve, you gotta slow down.
Life happens. If you wait for all your circumstances to calm down, then you're going to have peace. You'll be waiting your whole life. God never promised that He would keep us from difficulties, but He did say He would give us peace in the midst of the storms. That means despite what's going on around you, you still have peace. I didn't get the promotion that I worked for, but I'm not upset. I know God has something better coming my way. You weren't created to live worried. This is the reason many people have health issues. It's because their mind is never at rest. Your mind needs a break. It wasn't meant to go all the time. You have to learn to turn it over to God. You weren't designed to carry that heavy load. If you try to be God, God will step back and say, okay, you figure it out. But when you come back to a place of peace and say, God, I trust you. You have this all figured out, so I'm going to be still and know that you are God. It can be chaotic all around you, traffic, problems, drama, but on the inside, there's a rest. Friends, worry is a thief. It will rob you of your joy. You don't make good decisions when you're worried. We can't add 1 inch to our life by worrying. What's keeping you awake at night? It's time to come back to the still waters. Do yourself a favor. Take the worry off the throne. Take the financial difficulty off the throne and put God back up on the throne. To thank God that He's still in come to pass, God will give you the grace to handle it. We may not know what the future holds, but we do know who holds the future. Today is a gift. Many of the things you're worried about are not going to happen. And sure, we should plan, we should use common sense, but at some point, you have to turn it over to God. It's very freeing when you learn to turn things over to God. Really, it's important every morning. You should start the day off in peace. Look at the sunrise. Breathe in God's goodness. Thank Him for His blessings in your life. This is one of the main ways we show God we're trusting Him, by staying in peace. You're stable, you're consistent, you're in the rest of God.
That is a journey, my friend. That is a process. You will still have different things in your life you got to work through. And then when you get in success, it's going to feel weird. But when you get in success, sit in it anyway. Eventually, you're going to begin to wear it, and it's going to become you. It starts out foreign. It works its way to familiar. You're going to win if you don't quit. You're going to get comfortable if you don't quit. It takes a while to own it. And part of the biggest problem is the fear that it won't last. And that's not just money. That's love. That's relationships. We live with the fear that it won't last. It's mine. I really earned it. That's why it's important that it not be given to you. Because if I give it to you, I can take it from you.
Sometimes I find it difficult to put all my trust in God. Do any of you ever feel that way? I want to trust in God, but sometimes I find it a little bit more difficult to trust in Him. You might be able to relate. You might feel like I love God and I believe in God, but I still feel so uneasy about the future. When you look around, there's a lot to feel uneasy about, isn't there? There's the tension all over our country. I don't know about you, but I want to trust God. But sometimes I just want to say, God, it's difficult to trust in a God I can't see. There's a lot that I can see, right? I can see whenever my bank account goes down. I can see all the tension every time I read or watch anything in the news. God, I want to trust in you, but it's hard when I don't really see you. Or some of you might say, how can I trust in God when I did trust in God, but He didn't do what I asked Him to do? I prayed, I had faith, I believed and I trusted Him, and He could have, but He didn't. I really want to trust in God, but sometimes it's just not easy to do.
We all go through things in life that don't make sense. A friend walked out of a relationship. The company's downsizing. They don't need us anymore. Business went down. Dreams are put on hold. Sometimes it feels like we're going backwards. It's easy to live frustrated and think, God, why is this happening? But we're not going to understand everything that happens. God's ways are not our ways. He can see things that we can't see. And just because it's not fair doesn't mean that God is not in control. Your steps are being ordered by the Lord. If He allowed it to happen, He's going to bring good out of it. He promises all things work together for your good. On its own, it may not be good. It wasn't fair. You're uncomfortable. But when it all comes together, you're going to see how it works to your advantage. The difficulty, the delay, the betrayal was all instrumental in you reaching your destiny.
You can choose to trust God right now, or you can choose to trust in the systems of the world. And you got to be very careful here, because if you make a choice to trust the systems of the world, those systems may fail. But when you choose to trust God, He never fails.
Lord, help me to obey even when I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense to me, but because you're asking me to do it, and because of who you are, God, I'm choosing to put my trust in you. And this action leads us to the conclusion that you don't have to understand completely to obey immediately. You don't have to know the end of the story to turn the first page of a story and be obedient to the one who asked you.
The question that never goes away, why? And you can ask it all you want to, but it's the question that rarely gets an answer. Even Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me? The Bible doesn't say that God said anything back to him. So the next thing Jesus said was, into your hands I commit my spirit. I love that.
Proverbs 3, 5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him. The word acknowledge comes from the Hebrew word yada, which means to know. In all your ways, know him, and he'll make your path straight. In all your ways, you know him. You know him on the mountaintops, and you know him in the valleys. When you know him in the good times, you learn to trust him in the bad times. How do you know God? How do you know him? How do you know him intimately? How do you know him, trust him, walk in him? The only way that you can know him is to be close to him. And the way to be close to him is to cling to him. Not just to be close in proximity, but to hold on to and to not let go. Here's the key. In order to hold on to God, you have to let go of whatever else you were previously clinging to. In order to trust in him, you lean not on your own understanding. Can I say for a moment, that's just hard? To tell me not to lean, I'm wired to lean on my own understanding. Some would say it's a strength that I can figure this out. But when you get to the place where you let go of your own understanding, your own plans, your own desire, your own will, your own strategy, your own place of comfort, and when you cling to one who is a rock who will never fail you, you cling to the faithfulness and the goodness of the only one who really is good, then anything else that brought you the illusion of security before fades away in the presence and the strength of the goodness and the grace and the presence of God. Don't let go. Cling to the promises of God. God, I thank you that I can cast my cares upon you because you faithfully care for me. God, I'm clinging to your truth that you will provide all of my needs according to your glorious riches in Christ Jesus. God, I thank you and praise you that you're working in all things to bring about good, God, to those who love you, who are called according to your purpose. God, I cling to your truth that you will never leave me, God. You will never forsake me, God, that when I draw near to you, God, you always draw near to me. God, thank you. You are close to the brokenhearted. God, you save those who are crushed in spirit. God, you are my refuge. You are my strength. You are my help in time of trouble. in order to cling to the goodness of God, you have to release that which you were clinging to before. Lord, help me to trust you, to cling to you, even when I don't understand. God, help me to trust you and obey even the smallest of promptings, even if they don't make sense to me. I don't know the outcome. Got no clue of the outcome. And the good news is, outcome is God's responsibility. Obedience is yours. Lord, help me to trust you, even when I don't understand. What I promise you is God will prompt you in some way. He'll invite you to trust him. And what you'll discover is that big miracles often follow simple acts of obedience.
Trust is, think about these words when I say this, it's reliance on the integrity, the strength, the ability, the surety of God. It's confidence. And here's what I really like, to rely upon or to place confidence in. To rely upon, when you rely upon something, you lean on it. Who or what are you leaning on in the midst of hard times, in the midst of lack, in the midst of hurt, in the midst of sickness and disease? Who do you lean on the most? And so we rely on him. When you say you trust him, I trust God. That means I rely on him. I trust God. That means I have confidence in his certainty. I trust God. I have confidence in his integrity. I have confidence in his strength. I have confidence in his promise.
There will be times in life that you don't understand what God is doing. Things don't make sense. Trouble, delays, closed doors, people that betrayed you, prayers that haven't been answered. It doesn't make sense now, but don't worry. One day you're going to understand. God is going to connect all the dots. He doesn't allow things that he doesn't have a purpose for. That trouble is not a surprise to God. The sickness didn't catch him off guard. The child getting off course is not going to stop his destiny. God is still on the throne. He's still ordering your steps. You can't see it right now, but behind the scenes, God is lining up things in your favor. When it's the right time, when it all comes together, it's going to work for your good. You're going to see the hand of God. You'll look back and say, if that hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have this position. If that door hadn't have closed, I wouldn't have met this person. If I hadn't have gone through that difficulty, I wouldn't have stepped into this new level.
Now, you may not feel like God is changing you or doing anything in your life because it happens just little tiny bits. And sometimes when you've got a mountain of problems, you may go 5 years and feel like you haven't changed that much at all, but really you have. It's just the devil wants you to focus on what's still wrong with you. Amen? Instead of looking at how far you've come. Don't look at how far you have to go. Look at how far you've come. And don't look at what you don't have. Look around you at what you do have.
You see, Christians have a tendency sometimes to lean on their understanding instead of completely leaning on God. And so you got to decide that when it comes to trusting God, am I going to trust him all the way, or am I going to trust him 30% of the time and then trust something else 70% of the time? What are you giving your attention to the most? What are you giving your attention to the most? It may be because you trust it the most. And I'm sure it's so tempting to trust other things, other people, other systems. Satan is doing everything he can to try to get you to trust him. And more than that, he wants you to not trust God and to not need God. The root to all evil is when you no longer trust God and when you no longer rely on God and when you no longer think you need God, and now you think that money and things and people, you think that those things will serve you better than God. When you trust God, you will decide to keep your attention on that which you trust. I trust God, so I'm going to keep my attention. I'm going to tend to the Word. I trust God. I'm gonna give my attention to God. I'm gonna fellowship with God. I'm gonna practice the presence of God. I trust God. As I trust God, I'm gonna keep my mind, whose mind is stayed on Thee, because you trust Him. When you trust God enough to give your attention to Him, He says that'll keep you in perfect peace. It'll keep you in perfect peace.
You may not understand what you're going through. You could live worried, discouraged. Try a new approach. God, I don't understand it, but I trust You. I know You're in control. You're working all things for my good. So I'm not going to live upset. I'm going to stay in peace, knowing that You will get me to where I'm supposed to be.
Have you committed your cares to Him? That's why He said, cast all your care on Him, because He cares for you. Have you committed your trouble to Him? Have you committed the persecution to Him? Have you committed the lack to Him? Have you committed the relational, discord to Him? Have you committed the hurt and the brokenness and the pain to Him? Because you trust Him, you will commit your ways unto the Lord.
It's very freeing when you can say, God, I don't understand it, but I trust You. Doesn't seem fair, but I'm not going to live bitter. Had some bad breaks, disappointments, but I'm not going to go around sour. I know You're still in control, and You will work out Your plan for my life.
What God has in front of you is more fulfilling than anything you have seen in the past. There are times the good has to come to an end to make room for the best. It's all of part of plan. And I think more times than that in think people trust like Santa Claus. And then when they don't get the gifts, it's a problem. You can see what God is up to, but later on you're going to understand you may not see how that works out for your good until years down the road. I think true is the ability to embrace what we don't understand, even thought I don't like it. I can still trust God even thought I can't trust God. We may not like the processes. Together we'll tell you it's never going to get better. That discrimination didn't stop what God has for you. That setback is not stopping you. It's setting you up for new levels.